Well, my name is Samantha Elliott Briggs, and I am a Parkway South Junior High School and a Parkway South Senior High School alum, class of 1991 from the senior high school. I left Parkway South and moved to Atlanta, Georgia, attended Clark Atlanta University, received a bachelor's degree in early childhood education. I taught for a few years in Atlanta, moved to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where I received a master's degree in women's studies in 2001 and a Ph.D. in education instructional leadership in 2008. So that's my education career. I taught at the University of Alabama women's studies and African American studies, and now at Samford University, which is a small liberal arts college in Birmingham. Parkway helped me kind of as an all-encompass with both my childhood as well as my Parkway experience. Worked in combination. It's something that I didn't recognize early on, as a young person, but something that I've grown to accept and acknowledge as an adult in the choices that I've made. My father was a civil rights attorney. My grandparents were social workers. My mother was a political social activist. So I had this spirit of activism that I was raised amongst, and so it was always a part of me. I remember as a child participating in political campaigns, going into like Martin Luther King rallies on the holiday and stuff like that. And coming out to Parkway, I wanted to belong in the same sort of way. Being a participant of the voluntary desegregation program, I didn't have a traditional sense of belonging, I guess is a nice way to put it. And so I had to find that belonging. And so I found ways to be an activist within the school. Again, it was accidental, it was subconscious, it wasn't something intentional necessarily. But Craig Larson was the principal, and he was amazing. And he did an amazing job of trying to bridge a divide and create an understanding and appreciation and a tolerance. He wanted everyone to understand everyone else's perspective and where they came from. And I think given the circumstances, because I was amongst the beginning of the deseg students, and so given the circumstances, I think he handled the situation beautifully. And so I guess in a lot of ways, I can see my career path modeling some of the things that he implemented. I was a part of lots of advisory boards and lots of kind of peace sort of committees where county students and city students came together to try to understand one another and to break down some of the stereotypes and some of the animosity and resentment, not so much that we had, but things that were coming from home that we were bringing with us and trying to interpret in our own little teenage ways. So he did an awesome job at that, and I grew up to be a peacemaker. I am in social justice education is the way I choose to define the field that I'm in. I worked with teaching tolerance. I was the director of the Mix It Up at Lunch Day program, which is a program that asks students to cross the divides the boundaries that divide their school. Ask students to get rid of cliques, to get rid of stereotypes, and to have a better understanding and appreciation for their classmates. So I guess with that, I am who they developed me to be. I've been speaking to a lot of my classmates recently since all of this has started, and I participated in a conference on national school desegregation about a year ago, which I think is where the school system recognized me and that I was out in the world somewhere doing something. Don Senti, who's now superintendent, was my middle school principal, and he was in the audience at Harvard Law School when I was presenting. And he came up to me afterwards and reintroduced himself, and it took me a minute to figure it out. But we went through the conference and we talked periodically, and there are lots of 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds who were sharing their experience of dual world living in desegregation programs, and how they didn't feel as though they were understood, and how people just made assumptions about their lifestyles and who they were. And I remembered so much at the time that I was at Parkway South. My father was Assistant Attorney General for the state of Missouri, and I happened to live in the Central West End, which is the city. but my classmates thought the worst of what city life was based on what they saw on the television and news, and all they could think of was crime. They didn't think of beauty. They didn't know that Forest Park was in the city. They didn't know that the zoo was in the city, and those were the kind of stereotypes that I helped work to get people to move beyond. But some stereotypes that we had, and some things that we said as kids that we didn't think was necessarily mean, but I learned in talking to some of my classmates who I'm still friends with, who lived in the suburb. They lived in the Parkway district. We had nicknames for Black students who lived in the county. We called them County Browns, and we just thought it was cute. We didn't mean any harm by it. They called us the city kids, and we called them the County Browns. I didn't want to say that to the students yesterday when I went to the middle school and the high school, and I alluded to the fact that we had nicknames that may not have been so nice. And they said, "What, you called us County Browns?" And I was like, 25 years later, that name still exists. And it may not have meant anything to me 3 years ago, but last year when I called my girlfriends and I was talking to them about DSEG, they said, "Well, no one ever asked us how we felt." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, one friend in particular said, "My best friend who lived next door, who was a white girl, her mom stood on the picket lines and held signs that said, 'Don't let them come here. We don't want them here. They don't belong. Leave them in the city,' or whatever." She said, "Do you know how it felt to not only have to break the picket line, but break the picket line where my neighbors were creating?" And I never thought about the other side of the story and how the children who lived in the district may have felt, and the pains and the isolations and the dual world as well. And then my 8th grade boyfriend, who I'm still friends with today, he revealed to me a few months ago that he hated County Brown, that he took horrible offense to it. He was embarrassed, and that most people he knew who lived in the district couldn't stand it. So, it's amazing how years later, we still have the same pains and hurts. And we've all, my friends that I'm still in touch with, we've used that in some kind of way in our present lives, whether it's through making sure our children don't have the same experiences, and that they're happy and at peace with their schools and their friends, or whether it's a career choice. But in some way, we've all become activists in a lot of ways as a result of the experience that we had. So we were all brave, those of us who lived in the city, those of us who lived in the county, the administrators to take this on. There were lots of brave people,